popular government belongs to Lok Sabha. So when government belongs to Lok Sabha, it should be more responsible to Lok Sabha. Its more members should be from Lok Sabha rather than from Rajya Sabha, although there is no any such criteria mentioned in the constitution. Unless cabinet gives in written, there cannot be emergency. Government cannot impose emergency, Prime Minister cannot impose emergency if cabinet does not give in written. So parliamentary versus presidential form of government. This. So we gave you some characteristics, differences, right? Let's first understand this presidential system. Presidential system. So basically in presidential system, let's say that the presidential system is found in US, right? Now in presidential system, what US has also complete separation of powers. So then you will find that there, this is called legislature, this is called executive, this is called judiciary. So all will be separate. Now president is directly elected. The president will be directly elected by people? No. People, then method of election will be proportional representation. Proportional representation.
Elected member वो करते हैं.
I will tell it proportional representation. This 50% plus one vote. This proportional representation होता है जैसे we have let's say कि first past the post system. So first past the post system in which you have the ballot paper, and in that ballot paper you have to give just vote to one candidate out of suppose 4 or 5 candidates. But in proportional representation it is not that you have to give, you give in order of preference basically. This. It happens in presidential election, it happens in Rajya Sabha election, it happens in your university elections. This university, let's say student union leader, so there is also proportional representation. So you give vote in order of preference, let's say, and criteria is that you will have to secure 50% plus one vote. Proportional representation is considered more representative. This is how. But we are trying to help you gradually, means ki today, one day we will take this also. So we'll explain you what is, when we'll take elections topic, there also will explain it. Now, let's understand that basically if you take president and let's say prime minister, this is like US and like India. The president election is direct, election is indirect. This you should know that the election is indirect. Then head of this executive, head of executive, that is called Council of Ministers. Here it is called cabinet. Now, this you should know this. Not responsible to legislature. This responsible to this Lok Sabha can vote out government. US Congress cannot vote out. तो इसलिए क्या ये हो जाता है स्टेबल गवर्नमेंट, और इसलिए क्या हो जाता है it becomes unstable government. This one day we'll explain about Prime Minister. Here we are not explaining. So everything we will talk here and there, let's say. Time will come that we will explain those things. We are trying to help you explain a bit what is presidential system, how presidential system has advantage over parliamentary system, what is parliamentary system, and how parliamentary system has advantage over presidential system. So this you need to understand so that you understand about nature of polity. So basically Prime Minister. So then here let's say that what we say president is more than equal. Do you know that president is more than equal? This PM is first among क्या बोलते हैं इसको प्राइमस इंटर पेयर्स. Do you know this? Primus inter pares. Who told? Lord Morley. I think Morley. Are you aware about primus inter pares? Do you read Lakshmikant? Are you reading Lakshmikant? You read Lakshmikant. This. These are very popular terms. Our Prime Minister is considered first among equals. First among equal means we have council of ministers. All are considered. What we considered? All are equals. The PM is even considered equal to ministers. The status of PM legally is also equal to ministers. Let's say even any minister, any cabinet, prime minister is also a minister of cabinet rank. Finance minister is also a minister of cabinet rank. The prime minister is also a minister of cabinet rank. The prime minister has status legally, if you take, the legally prime minister's status is equal to cabinet rank minister. This is called first among equals. Why it has been done? Because parliamentary democracy is known for collective responsibility. It is known for collective responsibility, and let's say presidential system lacks responsibility. This through collective responsibility, cabinet form of government, Westminster model of government, which will talk you when we'll take parliamentary democracy. So there are advantages of parliamentary system. Presidential system, president is all powerful. President is a person, what we say that? President is all powerful. This is how I can say. Why? Because he is more than equal. Right. President can remove all his cabinet members. Do you know this? If you take US president, this president is directly elected. So when he has been elected for 4 years. So when he is elected for 4 years tenure, then you know that he cannot be removed. He can be only removed by Congress. That is called impeachment. And that impeachment, if there are certain serious breach of conduct by the president, then president can be removed. Otherwise, president will have 4 years tenure. But in parliamentary system like in our country, government cannot have 5 years tenure. Suppose Nitish Kumar and Chandra Babu Naidu, they withdraw support. Today government will. So parliamentary system of government lacks stable tenure. But presidential system has stable tenure because president is directly elected by people for a fixed tenure, like say 4 years in US. And unless there is any serious breach of conduct by president, he will complete his 4 years tenure. The stable tenure is a major feature. That day we told you that it is a major feature of presidential system. Then you know that since president is directly elected, he is all powerful. Why he is all powerful? He can appoint his cabinet. He appoints his own cabinet, and now cabinet members. Who are cabinet members? The cabinet members are not necessarily elected members. Why? Because they are not supposed to belong to legislature. Right? This you should understand. So these members are, let's say, appointed. And when they are appointed, let's say, they are not members of US Congress. That is the legislature, parliament of US Congress. They are not members of. Then president can remove. Anytime he can remove them. This, but let's say what happens in Indian case? PM, and then we have council of, and they should belong to Lok Sabha, right? Why? बिकॉज लोकसभा में जिसका मेजॉरिटी होगा वही तो गवर्नमेंट फॉर्म करेगा. The party which has majority in Lok Sabha will form the government. Largely, council of ministers will belong to Lok Sabha. So when they belong to Lok Sabha, council of ministers, PM is the head. So what happens? President in US is free to select his own cabinet members. That's why Elon Musk can also be a cabinet member. This, that you should know. But Prime Minister in our country is not free to choose his own cabinet members. The cabinet members must belong to Parliament in general and Lok Sabha in particular. This, that you should know. They can be in general Parliament, means Rajya Sabha member can also become minister. A Rajya Sabha member can also become minister, but most of them belong to Lok Sabha. These all things will deal you later, right? Why they belong to only Lok Sabha, largely Lok Sabha, why not Rajya Sabha? Because government, popular government belongs to Lok Sabha. So when government belongs to Lok Sabha, it should be more responsible to Lok Sabha. Its more members should be from Lok Sabha rather than from Rajya Sabha, although there is no any such criteria mentioned in the constitution. Right. So Prime Minister will select his council of ministers and they will largely belong to Lok Sabha or in general Parliament. This Parliament, isn't it? In that way, let's say ki both will be responsible to Parliament. But यहाँ पे क्या है? President is not responsible to US Congress. Congress has no any role in that cabinet. They are independent because separation of power. There is complete separation of power. It is because of that executive is independent and legislature is independent. Their members' elections are held separately and president election is held separately. Are you able to understand? Now, by this you will understand that the president seems to be more powerful than prime minister. Can we say? President seems to be more powerful than prime minister. Why? Because president is directly elected. Who will be directly elected? To get directly elected, you should be a very popular person among people. But in India, no any, let's say, candidate is directly elected as prime minister. Rather, each candidate is elected as member of parliament. Try to understand. So each candidate has to be elected as a member of parliament. No candidate is elected, there is no voting for being prime minister. There is a voting for each candidate in a constituency on the basis of you are a party member. So people give vote to party symbol, not the candidate. In parliamentary democracy, people give vote to party. You should know this. Party has its own symbol. The people are not voting Prime Minister. People are not voting Rajnath Singh. People are voting BJP. The BJP has Kamal as, let's say that, ki lotus as, let's say that, symbol, and Congress has, let's say, ki hand. This is how you can say that symbol. The people are giving vote to the party. They are not giving vote to a candidate as a Prime Minister. It is the party which decides ki who should become Prime Minister. Once it gets majority, and then party will nominate a person as Prime Minister, and that nominated person will be appointed by President as Prime Minister. This is the process. Now in US, President is all, right? He is elected, directly elected. So certainly a president, the person who is going to be elected as president, he will be a very popular person. He will be a very dominant person. he should have such a level of popularity that people will give vote to the Kamala Harris may not be as popular as Donald Trump. Personality becomes more dominant, and here party becomes more dominant. Like if party is popular, the people give vote to party. Many a time people say that I am not voting to candidate, I am voting to BJP party. Right. This is how also you'll find that. So parliamentary democracy is a democracy in which we give emphasis on collective responsibility. Prime Minister is considered first among equal, and there is a dominance of party system. But presidential system is a system where a person dominates, a personality dominates, and that person is voted by people for a tenure of 4 years. Tenure may differ country to country, but in US it is 4 years, and then that 4 years is directly elected. Hence, there is stability of tenure, because generally president cannot be removed, because there is no concept of losing confidence in Lok Sabha. But in parliamentary democracy, there is a concept of no confidence motion. The no confidence motion can be brought, and government may not be able to prove majority, so it can fall. Like Atal Bihari Vajpayee, he was 13 days prime minister and he was not able to win confidence. Then he was prime minister for 13 months, and then party lost confidence in Lok Sabha, so party, let's say government fall. So that is how you can find that in parliamentary democracy there is unstable tenure. In presidential democracy there is stable tenure. Since people vote president has a stable tenure, and let's say that president is popular functionary, presidential system means you can say strong executive. Government becomes strong and president becomes all powerful. So when president is all powerful, so you have a strong leader. When you have a strong leader, so its advantages will be you can have radical reforms, you can have effective execution of decision, you can be very decisive. So presidential system can have its own advantages. And another advantage, try to understand, gradually you will try to know all these things, that here cabinet, he can select the best members as cabinet, because members are not supposed to be part of, so you are free to select your cabinet members. ये एक advantage बाद में पता चला, means we have realized this advantage later, that the president in US can select the best brain in the market in all different areas. But in parliamentary democracy, you are bound by the members who have been elected. Right? And many a time elected members are not best brain. They are not best brain. You know how ministers are. The ministers may not be well educated. Ministers may not be, let's say that, having understanding about the respective area they have become minister. This, like I will give you example, HRD minister. So we have Durga Shakti Irani. Basically, I tell her like that. So Durga Shakti Irani means Smriti Irani. So I tell her Durga Shakti Irani. That is how let's say. So मान लो Smriti Irani is HRD minister. No, don't you think that the person whose own education is doubtful, right? She is not having a high level of expertise and knowledge in the field of education, but she becomes Minister of Human Resource Development. With due respect to her as individual, but can we say that she is a competent person? Not at all. Right. Similarly, you can have many such ministers who may not be that competent. Imagine Elon Musk has been brought in the US cabinet. आप समझ सकते हो कि what will be the stature of US cabinet. So they are basically what they do: finance minister, IT minister. The IT minister in US will be the best person in IT sector. Yes, they will bring that person. This foreign relation, they will bring the academic experts. हमारे उनके यहाँ इंडियन फॉरेन सर्विस नहीं है. US does not have foreign service. So US appoint an external affair minister who is very expert in external area, foreign relations you can say. Same thing they will appoint other such ministers. What we are trying to say is that the president in US is free to appoint his own cabinet and he will try to have the best team in US. But in parliamentary democracy, what has happened? There is accommodation. You have to have accommodation, and for the sake of accommodation, make other persons happy, नहीं तो वो गुस्सा हो जाएगा. This, so other parties happy, नहीं तो support withdraw कर लेगा. So what you do is that you have the cabinet, and cabinet may not be necessarily considered as the best team in India. Right. And when you do not have the best team, effectiveness of government will suffer. Right? So gradually you may be, let's say, understanding what advantages and disadvantages of presidential system. Yes, and वहाँ पे cabinet member, once UPSC has asked this question also, so we'll see this, we'll teach you later on when we'll take Council of Minister and Prime Minister, real executive, there will teach you in details. हमारे देश में क्या है, कैबिनेट, लेट्स से कि काउंसिल ऑफ मिनिस्टर का स्ट्रेंथ क्या होता है, ओवर 70. Such a big team, and there will have this. The managing 20 team, leading 20 team is more effective than leading 70 members. This, anyhow, what we come to know about advantages, that day we told you, isn't it? The presidential system. Presidential system. It will have advantages. So first is let's say we told that day strong leadership. No, strong executive. You may be now understanding what is strong leadership, strong executive. This second thing there is stable government, means tenure. This then yes. So decisiveness in policy decisions. This the radical decisions. You know that strong executive results into effective policy implementation. Yes. This the effective policy implementation. This we can consider. So government can become result oriented, performance oriented, it can promote speedy reforms, it can have speedy reforms. This so that is what, let's say, you can consider advantages when we talk about this presidential system, that should be clear. Let's say many things can be simply struck in your mind if you understand. So आपको याद भी नहीं करना है कि what presidential system, you can yourself know yourself, right, Arliss, right? Now disadvantages क्या होगा? This disadvantages. So try to understand. When there is a strong leadership, there is concentration of power. Whenever there is a concentration of power, there is threat to misuse of power. That is how, let's say that. So it is risk of arbitrary exercise of power. There will be concentration of power, dominance of one leader, जिसको बोला जाता है whims and fancies of one leader. Risk of arbitrary exercise of power, concentration of power, dominance of one leader. That we can consider. Then so it is less representative, basically not suitable to right, country with plurality and diversity. This
serves in its own interest. Serves in its own interest.
yes, it can serve its own interest. That
And within the system transform into monarchical or dictatorship.
yes, this is how threat means threat to democracy can be dictatorship. There can be dictatorship, authoritarian. This right. अब ये देखना है, we have to learn after parliamentary form when we'll talk that ki whether it has become like this, how presidential form of government has worked. So see, already there was threat that if you have a presidential form of government, it is going to be like this. Right. Whether in actual practice it has become like this, right, and whether it has been able to perform like this, right, and what if in actual practice it has not become like this, right, then it can be better. These were the threats, concerns, but has it become like this? Not necessarily. That is how we have to see how presidential system has worked. And now we are saying that parliamentary democracy has advantages. Has it worked? Right? So we will have to compare. When we'll have to compare, we have to write two things. Let me write it's A. And it is B for our convenience, we'll compare it, right? So that is how presidential system, advantages and disadvantages. Now let's take parliamentary system. Parliamentary democracy, right? Now advantages and disadvantages. What will be the advantage? First point is, it is called responsible government. First point is this. Responsible government. This. Then we say it as collective cabinet, also we say that cabinet form of government. Then PM is first among equals. Then it is more democracy, it is more representative and democratic, then suitable to later somewhere will tell you triple chain of accountability, right? We'll teach one day we'll teach you accountability, so there we'll teach you about this, what is triple chain of accountability, right? There is a triple chain. Let's say government is responsible to parliament, parliamentarians are responsible to people, administration is responsible to executive. Means you tomorrow become bureaucrat, you are responsible to government. Government is responsible to legislature. Legislature is responsible to people because people elect them. This is called triple chain of accountability, which was highlighted by NCT Delhi case by Supreme Court. Right? It can have many other advantages, let's say, but enough points to write. This party dominates rather than personality. This so basically what you take out of all those advantages, it will be a responsible government. We will consider it a responsible government. This is how we take out of all these points. In essence, what we say that the parliamentary system of government is a responsible government. This, which I will dictate after this. But what can be disadvantages? That is how we have to see. Let's say that we told that the parliamentary system has this advantage, presidential system has this advantage. Whether their advantages have worked, how they have worked in actual practice. So when we say parliamentary system is a responsible government, whether governments have been responsible, right? That is how we have to evaluate. And when presidential system is strong, executive is result oriented, performance oriented, has it remained performance oriented? This, that you can consider. That is how we will evaluate on that basis. Means we think that these advantages will ensure that the parliamentary system does not experience authoritarian type of government. But is it really that? We have to compare. Right. Anyhow, so what will happen when it is a collective type of government? Yes, the first point is called unstable. Unstable government. Then, right, this, yes, so slow decision making due to lack of consensus. This, next, yes. M3 is popular, infamous term for muscles, media, and money in elections. Yes, it is, let's say, muscle power, media, and money. We say as M3. Basically, you should know that it will become unstable government. It is slow decision making, lack of consensus. Government may not be strong. Leader, let's say, coalition government, prone to political corruptions in elections, which I will elaborate what happens, and criminalization of politics, etc., etc. These things will happen, and let's say that. Basically, let's name it as what we can say that for our analysis, so we can say it is X and we can say it as Y. Right? So basically its beauty, let's say, why we chose responsible government. Try to understand. Framers of the constitution, they were aware about presidential system and how it worked. They were aware about parliamentary democracy and how it worked, especially in UK. Still they went to adopt parliamentary system. Why they adopted parliamentary system? So the most important factor was that the government should be a responsible one. And since in parliamentary democracy you have a collective form of government, as prime minister is considered first among equals, it is the cabinet that takes decision. You know that many areas if cabinet does not take decision, government cannot take decision. You should know it. The cabinet takes the decision. That later on one day we will talk you that how cabinet takes decision. Let's say it is written after 44, in 44th amendment act it was written, unless cabinet gives in written there cannot be emergency. Government cannot impose emergency, prime minister cannot impose emergency if cabinet does not give in written. This is called collective form. Collective form is that parliament party, let's say, the party dominates, people they cast their vote on party, not personality. This, that we can consider. So both have their advantages and disadvantages. Still, parliamentary democracy is considered better than presidential system in context of India. That's why we gave preference. Why? Because of these factors. Framers of the constitution, they were not aware that our politics may decline like anything. It is, which will talk you how it declines, or you can observe this also, right? This we can say. Let's write that. Even if both have advantages and disadvantages, even if both have advantages and disadvantages, still framers of the constitution gave preference to parliamentary form of government, rather than presidential type. Let's write subheading factors in bracket causes influencing adoption of parliamentary system. Influencing adoption of parliamentary system. Right. First, the idea of responsible government. The idea of responsible government. Right. It was the most important factor. Second, experience of parliamentary democracy during British rule. Next, democratically India being more close to UK parliamentary system. Democratically India being more close to UK parliamentary system. Next, diverse and plural society. diverse and plural society. Plural society. Right? This change in paragraph. Right. The idea of responsible government. The idea of responsible government. It is a subheading. The idea of responsible government. It means the government should be responsible to people. Government should be responsible to people through legislature. Through legislature. And there should be a democratic system of governance. Democratic system of governance. Hence, layers of responsibility structure was introduced. Like first, Article 75. First, Article 75. Council of Ministers headed by Prime Minister. Council of Ministers headed by Prime Minister is collectively responsible to Lok Sabha. Collectively responsible to Lok Sabha. Next, the executive belongs to Parliament. Next, no confidence motion. No confidence motion and other motions. Next, triple chain of accountability. Triple chain of accountability. Yes. Change paragraph. B.R. Ambedkar was very strong advocate of idea of responsible government. Idea of responsible government. Right? He remarked, India should go for idea of responsible government. India should go for idea of responsible government, even at the cost of unstable government. Even at the cost of unstable government. That is, if one is given preference, one is given choice between stability and responsibility. One is given choice between stability and responsibility. One should go for responsibility over stability. Right? Are you able to understand? Right. So these were the debates in the Constituent Assembly, and they were aware about the risk of presidential system, risk of parliamentary system, and B.R. Ambedkar was very clear, very decisive. What decisive he was? that we should go for responsibility over stability, means even at the cost of unstable government, we should go for parliamentary democracy so that it becomes responsible government. The idea of responsibility was given so much of preference over idea of stability. And that is how we have to evaluate whether governments have been responsible. If they have not been responsible, so whether let's say B.R. Ambedkar and then those let's say that members were precarious, right? They did not have experience, they did not have that kind of foresight how things would change. Are you able to understand these things? What we are raising the questions, right? So, but before we go to that, let's see, India went for adopting parliamentary system. And even if we adopted parliamentary system, still let's say our parliamentary system is different from UK parliamentary system. Right. First, this is what we will compare. Then we will try to evaluate. Right. So let's write on this. Comparison between Indian parliamentary system. Comparison between Indian parliamentary system and UK parliamentary system. UK parliamentary system. Parliamentary system. UK parliamentary system. UK parliamentary system is considered oldest parliamentary democracy in the world. Oldest parliamentary democracy in the world. In the world. Yes, it is also known as Westminster model. Westminster model of democracy, or cabinet form of government. Right? See, Westminster is a place, right? It is about UK Cabinet Office. Yes, the UK Cabinet Office, the place where you have UK Cabinet Office is named as Westminster. Yes, it is West, M-I-N-S-T-E-R. It is Westminster. It is the place name. On the basis of that place name, it has been named as democracy. Right? We say it as Westminster model. It is a popular term. Or we say also is a cabinet form of government because of collective form of government. This you can consider. So let's write Indian parliamentary system. Indian parliamentary system is based on UK parliamentary system. UK parliamentary system. That is how Indian parliamentary democracy. That is how Indian parliamentary democracy is also referred as Westminster model of democracy. Is also referred as Westminster model of democracy. Westminster model of democracy. right? Is it clear? Yes. Let's see. However, still there are differences. Still there are differences. Differences. So one side you write about India, Indian parliamentary democracy. Other side you write UK parliamentary democracy. UK parliamentary democracy. Right. So, by the way, what are differences? What are differences between them?
Constitutional supremacy, parliamentary, constitutional supremacy India में, parliamentary supremacy, cabinet, PM, president, separation of large break of separation of powers.
Yes. So there are differences, we can say. This. So let's write on this. Indian side, let's say constitutional supremacy. Constitutional supremacy. This right. Parliamentary supremacy. Parliamentary supremacy. Yes. Let's say republic democratic system. Republic democratic system. This side. Monarchical democratic system. Monarchical democratic system. System. Next. This separation of powers. Separation of powers. In bracket, lacks separation of powers. UK side. Lacks separation of powers. Right. In separation of power, you write in bracket Indian side. Indian side. कहाँ से आवाज आ रहा है? आवाज?
किसी का mic on.
This next in bracket you can write that close to US. Close to US. Right. Next point. Right. Governed by written constitution. Constitution. In bracket. Right. There are details enumeration, detailed enumerations in bracket. This side you can write largely run by conventions. Largely run by conventions. Conventions. Next. It does not have exact replica of shadow cabinet. Does not have exact replica of shadow cabinet. This side, shadow cabinet system. Shadow cabinet system. Cabinet system. Next, ministers do not countersign. Ministers do not countersign when decisions are taken. That side. Ministers have countersigned when decisions are taken. Ministers have countersigned when decisions are taken. In bracket, ministers are also legally held responsible for decisions. Ministers are also held legally responsible, held legally responsible for decisions. For decisions. Next, bicameral legislature. Bicameral legislature in which Rajya Sabha enjoys equal powers except in financial matters. Except in financial matters. This side. Bicameral legislature, but the House of Lords is similar to legislative councils in India. Similar to legislative councils in India at a state level. Legislative councils in India at a state level. Right? Yes. So basically, let's say that these are differences, you know that. The differences, if you see that, even if let's say we have similarity, let's say we resemble, our parliamentary democracy is also based on what they have parliamentary democracy. So there will be more similarity than differences, you should know that. Our parliamentary democracy is almost replica of UK system. The differences are there, but they are not that overwhelming. The similarities will be more overwhelming than differences. This you should keep in mind. So as far as parliamentary democracy is concerned, we will be more close to UK. But as far as federal polity, independent judiciary is concerned, we will be more close to US. That system. So we have differences, but differences, let's write that. Even if there are differences, but similarities are more overwhelming. Similarities are more overwhelming than differences. That we can consider. So we decided to have our own uniqueness. Let's say that. This we can say this. So let's try that. The differences show that India avoided blind imitation. India avoided blind imitation. Imitation. India avoided blind imitation. And it tried to keep uniqueness of Indian parliamentary democracy. Keep uniqueness of Indian parliamentary democracy. This. Right? So that is how we say that the parliamentary system and presidential system. This. So that way we can consider like this. Now note, note. In parliamentary democracy, it is the parliament which is supposed to play dominant role. In parliamentary democracy, it is the parliament which is expected to play dominant role vis-a-vis vis-a-vis let's presidential system in which president is expected to play dominant role. President is expected to play dominant role. Dominant role. That's why in parliamentary system, the executive is responsible to parliament. The executive is responsible to parliament. The executive is responsible to parliament, right? That is how we can say on this. Let's let us evaluation of, let's say, subheading, evaluation of working of parliamentary system and presidential system. Parliamentary system and presidential system. Right. Since, let's say, since India adopted parliamentary system, so that government was held responsible. Then the questions are first, whether Indian parliamentary democracy has worked better than US presidential system. Presidential system. Next, why there is debate in India? To adopt presidential system. Right? You should know that. Let's see that how parliamentary democracy has it worked responsively. That is how you have to understand. So when we adopted parliamentary democracy, so we expected that this parliamentary democracy will be responsible, right? But then what it has experienced? In actual practice, let's say that PM leadership. So whenever we have a strong PM, So whenever we have a strong PM, that has happened, let's say 3 times. Let's say we have Indra, we have Rajiv, and then we have present PM. Right? And whenever we have a strong PM, that has resulted into concentration of it has resembled presidential system. This you can consider. Now, next is that unstable. You know that we have been unstable, most unstable is 1989 to 19. Yes. it is called the most unstable phase, right? The most unstable phase, let's say 5 prime ministers, we experience 5 PMs. This. And coalition government, the coalition government क्या होगा? It gives weak PM and it gives rise to political corruption, but that will deal separately, let's say, or where it is well understood when we talk about this, right? Now, let's say, hasn't it been authoritarian? Misuse of power. This. So we have misuse of powers. You know it. Emergency. You know 42nd Amendment Act. You know about present. You know that misuse of agencies. जिसको बोला जाता है इवन डेमोक्रेसी कैप्चर. This elections, etc. will find this. And the last we'll talk is elections and malpractices. This, and the next is, this year you GS question is whether it has been result oriented. That was not, but recent, do you know that 2024, one PYQ, what that PYQ? Marginalization of yes. So whether parliament is strong or executive. This. So
जैसे उनका पब्लिक के लिए अच्छे हैं बुरे वो मतलब नहीं, वो अगर स्ट्रांगली लिए गए विदाउट कंसर्न ऑफ द लेजिस्लेचर या काउंसिल ऑफ मिनिस्टर्स तो वो स्ट्रांग माने जाएंगे. बाद में उसका असर कुछ भी वो अच्छा बात नहीं करता.
नहीं, exactly, let's say that कि decisive radical reforms, though it has pros and cons, but it should bring more benefits. But in presidential system, the risk is that it can be the one person whims and fancies. Let's say in US, the way Trump is taking decision and those decisions are, let's say, being stopped by the courts, stopped by the Congress. But whatever he thinks that good, he will do that. People may not have consensus on that. This you can consider. So that's why presidential system can give a different level of dissatisfaction. And parliamentary democracy has different level of dissatisfaction. Because there, let's say now you will find that there is going to be basically data. Elon Musk, when he has been made, so they have taken data from different, let's say, departments. Now court has stayed on that. So then they say that it is misuse of machineries. Basically, let's say US government is misusing machineries, you can consider. And then let's say this is how we'll find that one civil society activist, that person, name I'm forgetting, that person, let's say that he is leading a movement against Elon Musk. That there is a movement in US to remove Elon Musk. This, because the way here we criticize Adani, let's say Elon Musk has become Adani of US. Right? Because some experts etc. are saying that he is getting his business benefits. His capital is getting multiplied. He is having, let's say, his wealth is increasing by the time he has joined, let's say, US government.
Accessing confidential data.
Yes, that you can say. So basically, it is like he has been part of the government to pursue his business rather than to make welfare of the people. This type of, let's say, things are also in discourse in US. And they are much more vocal than in our country, because in our country you know that you will be gagged, but they cannot be gagged, you know that, because they are very strong. Anyhow, but we will not go into this debate. What we are trying to talk, let's take this. See, framers of the constitution, they were not able to envision some of the flaws of parliamentary democracy, which have become because of decline in parliamentary democracy. Rather than telling these points, I will start with another point. Let's take presidential election. You should know that in presidential election, the president has to secure 50% plus one vote. So when president has to secure 50% plus one vote, merely let's say that this and that factor cannot help unless there is something good in the personality of the president. And then he will have to take all different sections of society into consideration. He'll have to take all different sections of the society in consideration. Let's take our country. A candidate can win elections merely because that candidate caste is 20% in that constituency. And that candidate religion is 20% in that constituency. That is a very serious flaw in our parliamentary democracy. Therefore, we have gone into balkanization of each constituency in our country. Each constituency is analyzed on the basis of caste and religion and subcaste, and a candidate is given ticket on the basis of that, which is in spirit violation of Indian Constitution. This you should know that. And that has promoted casteism, communalism, and regionalism. Like anything, it has created divisive politics. It has given rise to divisive politics. But suppose a candidate has to win 50% of the vote, then candidate will have to rise above all these things. That you should know that. You can imagine by the fact that this, how you'll understand. Let's take BJP party. The BJP party, you know that many things it has a hidden agenda. This even to change the constitution. It cannot openly express. Why? It will not get support. If you go into 70 years back history, so RSS etc. Jansangh, they did not respect Indian flag. They did not accept Indian constitution. This you should know that. Today they have become most patriotic, who let's say that did not accept constitution, and it is open, it is factually correct. I am not telling on my own. There are facts, let's say that, which you can look into. So they did not, but they knew that unless they will change, they would not get support. So they have brought changes in their electoral agenda. That's why they have got support, and still they do not get nationwide support because of certain factors. So you have to understand this, let's say, what has happened in parliamentary democracy: caste factor, religion factor, communal factor, regional factors. These things have resulted into divisive politics. And divisive politics goes against the spirit of Indian Constitution, where you have to promote liberty, freedom, equality, and fraternity, unity, and integrity. That aspect. Now, because of that, you will find this. These factors have resulted into, this is how here you will find this. This is a situation that you have, let's say, 46%. 46% members. Can you imagine this 46% and M3, let's say this is how M3, let's say that nexus and etc. This. So these things have resulted into, can you say when 46% members have criminal background, can we say we are giving a responsible government? This that factor you can consider. And then let's say that when debate started of presidential system, the debate started here. Debate started here. On presidential form. When governments became so corrupt, nexus, corruption, criminalization, all these things became so rampant that debate started during 90s that we should move towards presidential system because parliamentary democracy is failing to work, failing to perform because lots of corruption, etc. Let's say how many days our parliament works? 60 to 70 days. So there are so many factors, although we don't want to bring here, but let's say that what happens in presidential system and parliamentary democracy. The loss of these things, can we say that better than, means loss of these things, let's say you can see the better than what we can say that presidential system you have, I mean to say that whatever the loss we are getting is still less than the benefits that we are getting through parliamentary democracy. Because it has crippled your democracy like anything. That is how 2024 UPSC asked a question in Polity paper. Right? That question is there is a marginalization of parliament. And what we have written in note, parliament should play a dominant role. Question is asking, parliament has become marginal vis-a-vis, let's say that executive. Executive has become more powerful than parliament. When executive has become more powerful than parliament, can we say in case of risk of presidential system, we have also gone close to the risk of presidential system? Because this is what presidential type, when power is concentrated. And we will teach you one day when we will take other topics, let's see how there is centralization of power. Basically, when we will take you executive topic, there will teach you, when we will take Prime Minister, Council of Ministers, etc. So there will teach you that how there is concentration of power. This. So these factors, if you take, let's say parliamentary democracy, so it is not necessarily you can consider it is responsible. Now let's take the other advantages of presidential system. So basically, let's say we consider risk. Right? It was a risk of arbitrary exercise of power. And parliamentary democracy has also experienced arbitrary exercise of power. The quite similarity, that. The parliamentary democracy is not, let's say, completely insulated from arbitrary exercise. Even we had emergency, 3 times emergency imposed, 1 internal emergency, how it was misused. Then legislature, executive, judiciary conflict between, let's say, First Amendment, 24th, 25th Amendment, 42nd Amendment Act, all these things happen. Plus ordinances have been misused. When you will read all other topics of polity, you will realize it. How, let's say, ordinances. Bihar is a state which went on issuing 257 ordinances. President's rule, they are misused. You know this. So arbitrariness, if you talk, even parliamentary democracy has also experienced arbitrary exercise of powers. And remember, we have told that what about bulldozer action? So what Supreme Court says? It is lawless and ruthless state. The term that very sharp, let's say that ki remark by Supreme Court. It is lawless and a ruthless state. This parliamentary democracy has also risk of all these things. It is not prone to, it is not, let's say, insulated from that. Now, when we have a presidential system, to try to understand that there will be separation, union, state and local. This union, state, local. But when we have a parliamentary system, okay, so what happens? We do not have separation. Do you know this? We do not have clear separation. We have this, right? Union, state, local. Now, let's say that the framers of constitution, they thought that this will promote responsible government. Right. They thought that when there is no clear separation, that there will be checks and balances. And checks and balances will promote responsible government. Right. But you know what has happened? Blurring of responsibility. No one takes responsibility. They just pass responsibility to right, each other. Let's take old Rajendra Nagar. Old Rajendra Nagar, you read newspaper, what happens? Old Rajendra Nagar incident happens. See in High Court what happens. Before High Court, we have fire department, we have MCD, we have Delhi police, and you have Delhi government. Right. MCD is blaming before High Court. The MCD is blaming Delhi police is blaming MCD. Right. Both are blaming fire department. Ultimately what happens? Nobody takes responsibility. And you say it is a responsible government. How can you fix responsibility without clearly defined responsibility? Right. When responsibility is not clearly defined, how can you fix responsibility? Let's say what is happening in Kumbh and Stampede. Let's say in Delhi what is happening. 18 people died in Delhi. Who is responsible? Who is responsible? Will you make Delhi government responsible? Will you make Delhi police responsible? Will you make UP government responsible? But there is no talk of responsibility. It is simply out of the debate. Right. Railway is responsible. Which institution is responsible? Right. And it does not matter, 18 people died, so they died. Right. Because since you have 1.4 billion population, so always 18, 20, 30 deaths are nothing but minor incidents. This is how they will say it is a minor incident. Unless you have 1000 deaths, 2000 deaths, then this will be considered minor incident. But where is responsibility? So you are not able to fix responsibility. But parliamentary democracy was based on idea of responsible government. Right. Anyhow, now let's take what happens. It's an advantage, right? There is direct election at each level. Local level, one day will teach you local government also, so you will understand that there is direct election, direct election, direct election. Now president is responsible at federal level because he knows if he does not perform, next time he would not be elected. Because there is direct responsibility. But in party system, you can blur responsibility. Hey, party can bring a new leader. The new leader you can vote, the party remains the same. Even if past leader has not performed, party has changed the chief minister candidate, party has changed the prime minister candidate, you can vote, the party is the same. But here it is the president. Anyhow, the president, that is not as important as state level. Direct election, competent person will be elected. Direct election, mayor will be a competent leader. Right. This you should know. And each will be responsible at their level. Why? There is a unity of command concept. Unity of command means, let's say that there is one leader, one city, one head. So one day we'll teach you 73rd, 74th Amendment Act, and there also you will find that there is no any one leader. Mayor is a formal head, and जो real head है आपको पता ही नहीं है. You do not know who is the real head of Delhi Municipal Corporation, because he is the standing committee chairperson. You do not know him. Then municipal commissioner is given half powers. So there also you will find that in urban area also there will be no one leader. In state level also there is no one leader, and therefore let's say the union government will have interference in all. But here there is separation. The president has nothing to do with the state has nothing to do with local, they have autonomous space. And since there is a direct election, competent people come. This, like say Arnold Schwarzenegger, you know that? He was governor of California. This, you know, when he was elected, let's say that when he was elected, he had the task to make California budget surplus, but he failed. When he failed that, he did not come for second term. He himself decided not to come for. But in our country, as long as even you are on a wheelchair, you will continue to be elected. Sorry to say all these things, but this is what you have to understand. So don't think that the presidential system has arbitrariness. It has arbitrariness, but it has not necessarily become arbitrary. And parliamentary system, which has responsibility as main criteria, but it has not necessarily become responsible. Now let's take what do you mean by responsible government? The government which does not perform, what do you mean by responsibility? Possibility is that this system can perform better than, because ये तो आपस में लड़ते रह जाएंगे. When they will govern, they keep fighting among themselves. You can see what happens. State government is formed. Next day, let's say when government will fall, government is going to fall, government is going to fall. Right. What is happening at the state level? Right. Defection politics, coalition politics. 4 MLAs running here, 4 MLAs going in a resort. So are they governing or they are playing politics? So when you give a decisive mandate to a leader who is elected directly, he will go on for 4 years. He will not come under anybody else, etc. Let's say that kind of political bargaining, etc. But all the state governments, you can see, there are coalition governments, there is defection politics. Just think when they think to govern. So lots of infighting you will find. Even in parliament also you will find that walkouts, this and that happens. Therefore, those who have brought the debate of presidential versus parliamentary, they have shown the positive side of presidential government. And because of that positive side of presidential government, they are saying that we should replace our parliamentary democracy by presidential system, because it has, after its working, it has been realized that it has become even more responsible than what this you can say, because it is result driven. Right? Now, there are new tools of making government responsible irrespective of any government. Right? क्या है वो tool? RTI, e-governance, social audit, civil society. And it is, be it a presidential system, be it a parliamentary system, these things have made any government responsible. This, so even this system has also become responsible, and this system has become less responsible. It is more result driven, it is less result driven. So what, let's say we can perform in 10 years, we are trying to perform in 20 and 30 years. This is how you evaluate. One day we'll teach you accountability concept. After all, how you evaluate accountability of a government? Ultimately on the basis of performance. And let's take the problems related to education, health, poverty, backwardness, human development index, and our ranking on human development index. In last 30 years, it has not improved. Are we responsible? Right. The responsible aspect of democracy will be questioned. Our democracy freedom index rank is very worse. That is how it has been told. So today people are not concerned which type of democracy you have. Today people are concerned whether your democracy is delivering public good. That's why that day I told, forms do not matter. Whether cat is black or white, it does not matter, right? There is a Chinese saying, you know that. Anyhow, so when we'll teach you executive, state government, federal polity, local body, then what I am saying today, you will understand better. This.
पार्लियामेंट्री सिस्टम के भी कुछ गुड प्रैक्टिसेस हैं जो उसको मतलब ये डेमोक्रेट उसको डिक्टेटरशिप की तरफ नहीं ले जाते, या स्ट्रॉन्ग पीएम होना उसको हम बदल देंगे, सारी चीज़ें हो रहेंगी. बट ये मतलब कहीं ज़्यादा बेहतर है इंडिया जैसी डाइवर्स सोसाइटी के लिए, ये मतलब डेवलपिंग कंट्रीज के लिए पार्लियामेंट्री सिस्टम या प्रेसिडेंशियल सिस्टम.
Yes. Now let's say that we even if we know that presidential system has some advantages now over parliamentary democracy, simply because in parliamentary democracy what we have found, electoral malpractices, divisive politics, casteism, communalism, regionalism, because even your caste people are there 20%, you know that you will win, so you will play a caste card. This is how the caste card happens, caste, religion, how it happens. That results into divisive politics, communal politics. It will affect the spirit of democracy. This is one. Then money and muscle powers, populism, that will happen. Then criminalization, this. So these things are not in their democracy. You should know that. There can be black and white issue. There can be black and white issue, there can be migrants issue. Still, let's say that there it is not the way as rampant as in our country. This. So, when it is rampant in our country, it is not certainly helping in promotion of fraternity and unity in our society. That factor you can consider. The electoral malpractice has been a serious challenge. This you can say. The criminalization of politics, then nexus and corruption, those things you can say. Plus fixing responsibility, let's say then reforms have not taken up. Once we'll teach you union state relation, you will know how union controls both. So they don't have space to govern. Our urban areas are poorly governed. Yes. So in that case, they get advantages. Then overlays, yes. Let's say defection politics. There is no defection politics. Our defection politics is so rampant, it is political corruption. Aya Ram, Gaya Ram. Gaya Lal changed 3 times, 2 times of a government within 15 days. This you have to know the cost of hung parliament, the cost of criminalization, the cost of political defection. Do we know what is the cost of all these things? So that is what we have to understand. It does have now some advantages, but we cannot adopt presidential system. That is how let's say that we come out of this. But the person who has been advocate of presidential system is Shashi Tharoor. If you read articles related to presidential versus parliamentary debate in newspaper, most of the articles would be written by Shashi Tharoor. Yes. Why? Good people do not get chance to govern in parliamentary system like Shashi Tharoor. They will never get opportunity. And bad people get chance to govern. If you have money, give, you will be, let's say tomorrow, party member. Yes. So that is what we have to understand. Kejriwal in first term brought clean background MLA. Kejriwal in second term, that clean background was gone. Now in second term, many people came, those who gave money. This, and when they gave money, that is how, let's say, those people who were of clean background, they left. There was division in AAP. Let's say some people left AAP party. Let's say ki Kumar Biswas, Yogendra Yadav, this Anand something. Let's say one sociologist, something Anand. Let's say then Prashant Bhushan. This, so many people left. This we have to understand. Anyhow, just we have to conclude. So when framers of the constitution are we adopted parliamentary democracy, that it will be responsible government. However, the working of parliamentary democracy shows that it is not necessarily immune to emergency and arbitrary exercise of powers. It has also experienced emergency and arbitrary exercise of powers. In fact, arbitrary exercise of power can be even worse than a presidential system. The way machineries are misused, the way UAPA, National Security Act, others are misused. That way we can consider. And then it has not necessarily been responsible because of overlapping nature. And governments are not necessarily competent and efficient. At the same time, result driven also, let's say. But presidential system, on the other hand, has shown some good advantages over parliamentary democracy because of clear division of power. This and stability factor. It has also less electoral malpractices. And that's why it is being said, although India still cannot adopt, because we are habitual to parliamentary system. Parliamentary system has also been declared as a basic structure doctrine. So we may not change from parliamentary to presidential, but we can incorporate some positive characteristics of presidential system. What positive characteristics? So here there is a debate, one day we will teach when we will take local governments. Here we talk also to have direct election of mayor. That will become a sort of presidential system. Then we talked, can we bring electoral reforms like say proportional representation? If not proportional representation, can we have some reforms in electoral politics? Yes. Another thing is there is also simultaneous elections are still, let's say simultaneous elections are held in US. Can we have also simultaneous elections? Can we bring some reforms in parliamentary functioning? Can we bring reforms some executive functioning? So basically some reforms we will suggest to make it better, make it responsible, you can consider like this. And incorporate some characteristics of presidential system. That is how we have to talk, right?
Political will, constitutionalism.
Yes, constitutional morality, political will, you can say constitutionalism, political culture, so many things we can consider like this. Are you able to understand what the debate is, what debate, and whether the debate is heading towards, right, this. So simply to reiterate again, let's say, the parliamentary system was supposed to be responsible, but it has not necessarily been responsible. Rather, it is more irresponsible than responsible if you evaluate, let's say, on certain yardsticks, how our parliamentary democracy, how our governments, they go on, let's say that not delivering what the promise they make. This. And there are flaws in parliamentary democracy. On those, presidential system scores some points which we can adopt, we can learn. Although we cannot replace parliamentary democracy by presidential system because we are habitual to parliamentary democracy, we cannot also say that our parliamentary democracy has completely failed. It does have its own positive aspect, let's say, which we'll talk one day when we'll take you parliament, how parliament has worked there. So we need to bring some characteristics of presidential form, plus we need to bring reforms so that we can make our parliamentary democracy also work effectively, responsively, and becomes result driven. This is what we have to tell in brief. So let's write on this. Indian parliamentary democracy. Indian parliamentary democracy has failed to become responsible. Failed to become responsible due to the above factors. Due to the above factors. That is, it was thought to have advantages over presidential system, but in actual practice, it was thought to have advantages over presidential system, but in actual practice, it has not been responsible. It has not been responsible. Rather, it can be described to be highly irresponsible. Highly irresponsible. Following some points are telling in themselves. Following some points are telling in themselves. Telling in themselves. First, 46% criminalization of politics. Next, defection politics. Defection politics and political corruption. Defection politics and political corruption. Next, lack of clear division of responsibility. Lack of clear division of responsibility. Due to overlapping relationship between union, state and local governments. Union, state and local governments. Right. Change the paragraph. The recent stampede and death of 18 people at New Delhi railway station. Would fail to fix responsibility. As there would be blame game. First, Indian Railway to Delhi Police. Delhi Police to people. NCT Delhi to UP. NC Delhi to UP. Therefore, it is very regrettable that the democracy which is based on idea of responsible government, right, simply fails to fix responsibility. Right. Next, presidential system on the other hand. And has shown some advantages over parliamentary system. First, fixing responsibility. Due to clear division of responsibility. Next, all the three units, federal, provinces, and local governments, have their own autonomous space. Next, leaders are competent people. As they are directly elected, including mayors. Next, it does not have practices like first, criminalization of politics. Next, defection politics. Next, balkanized politics. In bracket, casteism, communalism, regionalism. Therefore, in a way, it can be said it is more responsible than parliamentary democracy. Right. Democracy. Let's should India adopt presidential system? Next subheading, should India adopt presidential system? If not, then what are other options? let's say adoption of presidential system. Adoption of presidential system. Debate is started. Debate is started in the era of. Debate is started in the era of. In the era of hung parliament. Hung parliament. Especially, let's say, during 1990s by Shashi Tharoor. By Shashi Tharoor, who is a strong advocate of presidential system. Who is a strong advocate of presidential system. Presidential system. Presidential system. Right? Presidential system. However, it will not suit to Indian condition. It will not suit to Indian condition. And it is also not necessary to adopt presidential system. It is also not necessary to adopt presidential system due to following factors. Due to following factors. First, India has institutionalized parliamentary system in over 7 decades. In over 7 decades. Second, parliamentary system is a basic structure doctrine. Parliamentary system is a basic structure doctrine. Next, India is a diverse country. India is a highly diverse country. Highly diverse country. Next, Indian parliamentary system has also good records in some respects. In bracket, it has not completely failed. It has not completely failed. Change bracket. Therefore, the options are first, bring political reforms. Like simultaneous holding of elections. Next, reform working of parliament. As suggested by National Commission to Review the Working of Constitution. As suggested by National Commission to Review the Working of Constitution. Next, reform the real government, the real executive. Reform the real executive as suggested by ARC second. Next, reform local self-governments. Reform local self-governments by incorporating some presidential characteristics, some presidential system characteristics, like direct election of mayor, direct election of mayor, D model. We said directly elected executive mayor. Right? Directly elected executive mayor. So one day we'll teach you what is that. Therefore, the idea of responsible government should still work as core principle for Indian parliamentary democracy, which can be upheld by bringing political reforms and clearly defining responsibility. This is what we can talk on this, right? So that is how the idea on presidential system, parliamentary system of government, what we have. So it is not just of this has an advantage, that has advantages, like this, that part. Then when we say ki prime ministerial government, presidentialization, that part I will deal when we'll take you prime minister, let's say that. We wrote that day. What is prime ministerial government? What is presidential government? Basically, whenever, let's say that you will find, just to give you reference, this. So they are nothing but presidential type of system. Whenever you have a strong government, a strong executive, so that strong executive becomes a sort of prime ministerial type or presidential type because of dominance of prime minister. Yes. Even a parliamentary democracy can have some characteristics of presidential form of government, right? Which we'll talk when we'll take a strong executive, weak executive, coalition government. This, because we expect now, since there is a coalition government, so we also expect a question on coalition government, right? This. And then finally we'll start the topic called parliament, right? First we'll start with union legislature, union parliament. Or union legislature. So basically we teach issue based, let's say, issues and developments, because questions are asked in that way, right? You should know that, because question they have asked related to, basically what they have asked question, one question, they have asked two times, they have asked question related to role and function, basically how parliament exercises control over executive. So that is the PYQ they have asked. This, so that has been asked twice almost. This you should know that. Then they have asked all these very important. Committees are very important part that they have asked. Privileges they have asked. This, then speaker office. They have asked. You'll find this. Ethics committee they have asked. This. Then simultaneous electoral reform they have asked. Simultaneous holding of. Two times ये तो हो गया अब. Right? It is called simultaneous holding of. C, let's say that, simultaneous holding of election. And they have asked two times. One, let's say it is 2014, they have 24, they have asked. And that is also a question in 2024. So basically issue based questions are asked. So we have been expecting that, expected questions. Expected. Yes. Right. So you read Lakshmikant, come by reading Lakshmikant, you understand some basics. So tomorrow we'll take this Union Parliament role, functions, process, procedures, basics we'll talk. Right, this committee, etc. This, let's say how much we can cover. This, then largely we go by issue wise. When we cover issue wise, we cover those basics also. Like bills, I do not teach here. When I teach money bills, there I teach, let's say, all about the bills. Then we take money bills. Speaker, we do not teach there. Speaker, we teach here. While teaching speaker, so basically questions they do not ask on deputy speaker and ex officio chairman, and let's say that deputy chairman, they don't ask questions on that. Rather, they ask question on speaker. The speaker wala topic that we'll take, then leader of opposition, all blah blah things. This is how we'll talk, right? So we'll finish here. So let's take tomorrow, right? We'll write question. So let's write. Then let's say discuss how right to life has undergone expansion by innovative interpretation of right to life by the Supreme Court. 250 words. The simple question. Yes, Supreme Court means case law will be there, right? That's one question you write.